Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us. Today we're back with New York Times best-selling picture book author, Pat Zietlow Miller. Hey, Pat, welcome back.
Great to be here.
Great to have you back. And today I want to talk all about publishing children's books with you. So, Pat, let's start with could you give us a quick compare and contrast for just the pros and cons of subsidized publishing versus traditional publishing?
Sure. Um, Traditional publishing, the pros are you get your work out broadly more easily. The publishers will work to get you into, stores like Barnes and Noble, Books a Million, like big chain bookstores. They have sales reps that meet with the indie bookstores and encourage them to stock their titles. You have the costs are much less because you don't have to pay for anything really. They choose the illustrator, they pay for the illustrator, they pay you in advance upfront when they purchase your manuscript, and then they work with you. And they're always like a really talented professional team of editors and art designers and cover designers to come up with the book that ends up on the shelf. And then they support your marketing efforts. You still have to do marketing yourself. I do quite a bit, but they support your efforts and do additional things. And if you want to, if your goal is to have a book nationally, if you want to be on the New York Times list, if you want to win an American Library Association award, your odds are better if you're traditionally published. Self-publishing is much, much, much quicker because you can pursue traditional publishing forever and have it not work out. There's many talented people that, for whatever reason, because it's so competitive. I mean, it's like auditioning for a Broadway show. There's a ton of people that look kind of like you and sound kind of like you, and you've got to, be the one that stands out. So self-publishing, you have much more control. You can say, now is the time, I'm going to do it, and you can make it happen. Also, if you're somebody who really likes to, plan everything, it's you. You can choose your own illustrator. You can control your own editing. You can design your own cover. You can, it's almost like running a little small business, and you can do those things and make it happen. And there's a lot of different ways. Like you said, there's total self-publishing. There's publishers where it's subsidized, where they pay some and you pay some. There's lots of different paths. There are self-published authors that do extremely well financially because, again, all the money that you make on a book when you self-publish comes straight to you, where with traditional publishing, you get a percentage of it. But then there are self-published authors that don't make anything at all and sell like 10 books. So, again, it comes down to the quality of the product either way. Like, are you self-publishing a really good book? Are you traditionally publishing a really good book? And publishing, like I said before, is kind of unpredictable. So you can be successful both ways. You can be not successful both ways. It's just kind of, what lines with your vision for how you want your career to look.
Right, right. Now, in regard to publishers, how can I, as an author, find a publisher that's legitimate and not a vanity press in disguise?
Well, there's a book out, which you said the title of in one of our previous sessions. It's the Children's Writers and Illustrators Market, I think. And it lists every publisher in there is a vetted publisher. Because even if you self-publish, there are good places to work with. And then there are, like you said, vanity presses, which there are some out there that are frankly kind of a scam. They want to just take your money and then not hold up their end of the deal. So it's important to do research. You can use that book. There's a website called Editors and Predators, where if people have reported problems with the publisher, you can go there and do a search and see if the publisher you're thinking of comes up. There are Facebook groups like Kidlit 411 where you can say, hey, I've been approached by this publisher. Has anybody worked with them? And people are very honest, and you get good feedback. I would just say don't get so excited that, oh my goodness, someone wants to publish my book, that you forget to do due diligence. And then obviously, with the contract, if you have an agent, they'll go through your contract and make sure it looks good. And if you don't, you really probably want to go through the Writers Guild or some other place to have someone who knows publishing look at your contract and make sure that you're protected.
Right. Now, what would you say are the best ways to increase my chances of getting traditionally published as a children's author?
The best way, and it doesn't sound fun, is just to write the best possible story that you can. Write something, set it aside, come back to it multiple times, revise it, share it with your critique group. I early in my career paid for professional critiques. There's some wonderful writers out there, that will critique your story, and you can get really good feedback. And then while you want to stay true to your story, don't think what you wrote is so great that you can't get feedback. Like, be open to feedback. There's multiple times where I've gotten feedback, and my first thought was, well, no, but then I try it and I go, oh, and so you want to be open to feedback, and then write a lot of things. Some people put all their eggs into one basket or one story, and like their hopes are all on that story. But every time you write, you get better. And so my early stuff is not nearly as good as my current stuff. So you always want to keep writing, keep learning. Um, I've said before, I got 126 rejections before I sold my first traditionally published story. And I wasn't just sending the same story out 126 times. I was writing a lot of other things. I was taking classes. I was, reading tons of books by other people. So it's really doing the work, and like if you wanted to be a concert pianist, you've got to put in the practice time. And the same thing is true for traditional publishing. And then there's a little element of luck, having your story connect with an editor at just the right moment.
Now, if I decide to self-publish, what are the most important steps I should take to ensure that my book is high quality and marketable?
The biggest thing I see is make sure you get a high quality illustrator. I mean, all the things I said about having a good story before absolutely apply, but I've seen self-published picture books that really look great because there's a high quality illustrator. And then I've been at book fairs and stores where I can go down the list, and just by looking at the cover, I can pull out what's self-published because the art just isn't at a par with the traditionally published book. So, a lot of people are like, well, my Uncle Frank draws. Don't use Uncle Frank unless Uncle Frank is like a professional, gets paid for his work. And sadly, if you want really high quality art, you have to pay for it. And I know for self-publishers where you're paying for that, it really is a worthwhile investment because that's the first thing people see with a picture book, and you want your art to stack up favorably with other books on the shelf.
Right. Now, Pat, how important is it to have a literary agent when submitting to traditional publishers, and how can I find one?
Okay, well, literary agents are really helpful. There are certainly people who are published traditionally without them. They're not required. I sold my first book without a literary agent. I just sent it in and the stars aligned, and there we were. But as soon as I got an offer, I got an agent. And agents are really great because they do a bunch of things. They can be another set of eyes on your story before it gets sent out, and they can tell you whether they think it's ready, and you should believe them. They also handle all the contracts. Publishing contracts are like multiple. I mean, they're big, it's not just a page, and they have a lot of clauses that you might not understand. And so they can go through there and say, okay, well, this one isn't in your best interest. And so I'm going to go back and negotiate this. They can negotiate more money for you. They can negotiate foreign rights, paper book, back editions, foreign editions, all that kind of thing that you as a writer might have no idea about. And they're also a great support system as you go through your career. How to find one. um, there, there's a lot of ways to find an agent, and sometimes finding an agent can be harder than finding a publisher because it's not like a real estate agent where you say I want to buy a house and they say sure, let's go do it. A literary agent will only take you on if they feel like you have a career ahead of you, and they want to work with you. If your story isn't quite ready and they don't think they can sell it, they're not going to take you on. There are ways online that you can go and search for agents, and every agent has their own submission criteria. So the best thing to do is go to that agent's website, look at how they want to receive manuscripts, send them the manuscript that way, and then keep like a chart because agents sometimes will get back to you right away. Sometimes, seasons will change before they get back to you. So you want to know who did you send something to, and then, when did they respond? And so it's kind of like a job, like anything else, pursuing an agent. Um, and then again, also, when you do get interest from an agent, you want to have a conversation with them and say, are you on the same page? Do you connect? Because it's kind of a long-term relationship. So if things feel really awkward or your personalities don't match up, that might not be the right long-term agent for you.
That's so interesting. That's a great point. It almost gets quite a bit salesy for the author.
Yeah, absolutely. It does.
And speaking of salesy and marketing, what marketing strategies would you recommend for children's authors, especially those who are self-publishing?
Okay. Well, the best thing you can do as a marketing strategy, I would say a couple things. One is develop relationships. You want to go into any local bookstores that you have and, politely introduce yourself, show them a copy of your book, Try not to go in during peak hours. We probably would be best to call ahead and like maybe even set up an appointment. But you want to go in and then go into the bookstore and buy things and get to know people and develop relationships with other authors in your critique group or online, because authors promote each other's books all the time. The children's book community is very supportive. You also want to have some sort of a social media presence. I know some people, social media is not their thing, but you should be somewhere. You don't have to be on every platform. But if there's one that seems a little more amenable to you, be on that one. And then be yourself. You don't have to suddenly turn into somebody you aren't. People want to know you. I mean, I blog about cats, books, and my kids. And if you know me, that's what I talk about. Oh, and shoes. So just be yourself online, be positive online. Sometimes people use social media as like a venting platform and to complain. And editors and agents will Google you before they take you on to make sure you're, stable. And so you don't want your online presence to be, a litany of complaints about things, because they'll be like, I'm not sure I want to work with this person. So Google yourself and see what comes up. And then in terms of marketing, find something that you enjoy. Like I started a blog before I was published, where I had kids review picture books, because I love picture books and I like kids. And so I'd read a book with a kid, I'd ask them questions. And then when people Googled me, that's what came up, was this blog, and it showed I'm into children, I'm into kids lit. So try to find something to do that supports your interest, and gets your name out there at least a little bit.
Well, Pat, thank you so much. That was wonderful insight on publishing children's books.
Thank you. And good luck to everybody out there who's trying to make their children's book career happen.
That's all the time we have for today. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to today's interview with New York Times best-selling picture book author Pat Zietlow Miller. Be sure to check out our website for more videos. Wishing you all a fulfilling and successful writing journey.